What's up? It's Chika, and you're watching Hard Knock TV.
People will tell us to follow our heart and then look at us crazy when we live our lives. My mom, this one's for dad. All the supporters that I ever had. It's for the principal of my high school who said I would be nothing, but look where I'm at. Won't stop till I ain't got to.
Welcome to Hard Knock TV, and now it's also the Hard Knock podcast. So
love that.
Before we get started, happy belated birthday.
Thank you, I appreciate it. It was a good one. It was a good one.
Turned 23?
Yeah, 23. I'm grown now officially. 22 is kind of like your last baby year. 23 is dope. Just brought it in with my friends, my management, my best friends. Yeah, it was cool. It was a real cool day.
And your birthday's on March 9th, which is also a big day for hip hop because it's Biggie Day.
Yep.
Does that have a special significance to you at all?
As a rapper, yeah, because I'm just like, dang, it's crazy. And I know a lot of people who are like, that's wild that Biggie passed the day I was born. Because, energy can't be like created or destroyed. It can only be transferred. So a lot of people are like, are you Biggie now? I'm like, I never said that. But it is a cool like coincidence, really dope thing. I like to think that he saluted me on his way out.
So I've been listening to the album for the last week.
Dope.
Or the EP, and we're gonna get into that.
Sick.
But before we get into that, I always like to go back to kind of get a perspective of who you are as a person, and then we get into the creative stuff.
Yeah.
So if you'll take this musical journey with me.
Let's go.
Let's set the scene like a intro to a movie. If we're going into your childhood home in Alabama, what are we seeing? What are we hearing? What are we smelling?
So I lived in two houses growing up. The first one is like my childhood home, because I think I moved to where my parents currently stay like when I was 7-ish. But my first childhood home was it was a small little, humble home. I had two siblings, and my mom and my dad, and it was just, a typical African household. My parents are from Nigeria, so it was very much so loud music playing throughout the house, and my parents running around and talking to each other in Igbo, and the kids kind of finding our own business and watching cartoons and being off to the side. And being the youngest, I was probably the most rambunctious of all of us, which is, still true.
Do you remember your first musical memory?
Kinda. I'm torn. So I remember I started singing when I was 2.
Oh, wow.
The reason I did is because when I was younger, I was always compared to Rudy from the Cosby Show. Because she did this thing where she was lip syncing. I can't remember what song. I'm so bad at history. Everyone's gonna drag me. But this was probably an iconic song that I'm forgetting. But she was lip syncing on the show. And because I was always compared to Rudy, I was like, I could do that. The thing is, I wasn't lip syncing. I would be singing. And so I was just very much so into making music and singing other people's songs at that point. I remember being obsessed with child stars and JoJo, which is crazy because we have a song now.
Right.
But she was really young at the time, and watching her old videos and her as a kid on Kids Say the Darndest Things and singing and doing all this stuff. And so even by the time that we did move and I was I had my own room finally, because I didn't have one to begin with, it was just me locking myself away for hours on end in my own room singing things. And yeah, but on the flip side, another first memory for me is me and my sisters forming a girl group.
Oh, what? What age was that?
Hysterical. I would hope younger than 9 because it was a mess, but I feel like we were very young actually. The name of our group was the Angels of Love or some shit like that. I'm what? But anyway, yeah, no, we would just literally sing covers of Disney songs and things that we'd heard in the household growing up. I guess I'm the only one who was all right, I'm gonna do this for a living. Everybody else was all right, on to bigger and better things.
Do you remember that moment when you thought, all right, I want to do this for a living?
I've always known that. I've always been this is it. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. Because I was torn between acting and music. I wanted to be an actor, but I very much so loved to sing. I loved everything about it, music itself. When I was really young, probably around 8, 9, I started violin lessons, and we never stuck with them. I had it for a year and a half. But then we did start piano lessons around the same time, and I did stick with that for a few years. So now I'm not a prodigy or anything, but I'm really good. I think that's what led me to be able to read sheet music and things like that. But I simply remember knowing since birth, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
This is your calling.
Yep.
Do you remember the first song? Because you said earlier you were doing a lot of covers. Do you remember the first original song you worked on?
Yeah, it was only mine, and I think I was 9, and I had written. I don't even know if I think I probably wrote it on guitar, but it was called On My Own. On My Own, which is funny because on the EP there's a song called On My Way, so it's full circle. But the lyrics of it were I'm doing it my way, and I'm coming home someday. I hope and I pray that I make it on my own. And I was 9. I'm like, and my parents were like, where are you going? And I was like, okay, well, the song's emotional, so that's what I wanted you to zero in on, but I guess it's cool to ask me where I'm going. But yeah, I was very vibey as a kid, very like, I knew a lot about like the way this journey would look for me. And even then, like from the mouths of babes, like prophetic shit, like I knew I was gonna be doing this by myself for the most part and kind of seeing my own vision until everyone else could see what was in my head.
Were your parents supportive early on, or did it take them a while to figure out like this was a career?
They were supportive early on, and then around like probably middle school, it was just like, okay, but you know, like grades matter. And I was like, okay, well, I guess. Because I made like straight A's till middle school. I think my first like C was in algebra in like 8th grade. A humbling time. But before that, my parents were super, super supportive about like me doing anything creative. We were just creative kids. We would like sing in the car when they would play music, so they didn't want to stifle that. But you know, around the time that it was like jobs and like thinking about futures, they were definitely like, come on, like let's veer away from this.
Do you know that moment when you knew you made them proud with the stuff you were doing in music? Was there a particular moment where you're like, they get it?
I think those moments are still coming in now. They're still happening. Like there's just certain times and like my dad, when he answers the phone now, he's like, hello, superstar. Like it's funny because like even beforehand, even when like I met Erykah Badu in 18, like I said that and they're like, okay, like because my parents aren't from here, so culturally a lot of the milestones that I've surpassed, like they didn't register with my parents yet. So I think as of late, like my dad follows me on Instagram and Twitter, which is so sad because it's a mess over there. But he's like now recently understanding the impact because he reads the comments. He's like, oh, people are rooting for you. Like this is not just a you thing. Like you're not just out there doing it because they're still in Alabama. It's like you didn't just move and like you're okay and like kind of you have a job that's like paying you a little bit. Like he's able to see like, oh, you're doing really big things and people are like watching. And for my mom, like same thing. Like they're very much so tethered in the response. A
lot of times for immigrant kids, our parents come here and they're like, they want us to get a standard job. It's not, they don't necessarily see it.
It was hard. Like I was a really smart kid, like not even to like boast in any way because your IQ changes, but like when I was young, like I was like 3 points out from genius IQ.
Wow.
And I was like highest out of my sisters, and so my parents expected a lot out of me already. And then my sister went to like the #1 magnet school in the nation. And I think my magnet school was like number 4 or 5. When I chose an art school on top of that. So they were kind of looking at me to do what she did because she's a doctor now. She's 25, just turned 25, March 7th, 2 days before me. And so with her being a doctor at 25 and being able to like make her own path like that and work for it, with me, even though I was working for it, but like my job didn't pay or like there was no curriculum to it. So with me, you know, deciding to leave school and do this, there's a lot of expectation on me to become a lawyer, actually, like an attorney, which I'd be great at. I love to argue and I'm great at it. But that expectation was 1,000% there, 1,000%.
How did growing up in Alabama shape you?
I think it shaped me more in subconscious ways than like overtly, because like one of the first stories I was recognizing and was like a fan of was the story of Ruby Bridges and how she had to like be escorted by cops to go to a regular like integrated school, and being a little black girl and seeing the imagery of a little black girl having to be escorted by tall ass like white cops through this crowd of people jeering and throwing like slurs and all this stuff. It was really impactful to me because I was like, oh, like you're still learning the world as a kid, so you're like, is that what the world is like? And so as I grew up in that society, which is still very like racist, still a lot of muted undertones to like the world that Alabama is, especially in terms of the fact that all of the tourist things down there are just, it's like about the civil rights movement, but it's run by people whose ancestors were Klan members, and some of their family members are still Klan members. It's just really weird, like, you know, the trauma industry out there is wild. So for me, seeing that growing up, I kind of knew, A, that I wouldn't be there forever, and B, that if there was anything I disagreed with on any topic, like I had to speak up about it, because the world that I'd seen that existed before I got there, even though I didn't know that at the time, I knew that like, oh, no one's gonna fight for me. You're gonna have to fight for yourself. And so I learned that very early on, and that shaped a ton of who I am. Like I'm very outspoken because of certain like undertones of like where I grew up, little nuances.
Has music been that outlet to speak about those
music, and also just like I've been doing like I remember in high school I put up Black Lives Matter posters everywhere and like got suspended. It was this whole thing, like it was
for putting up the posters.
Oh, wow. It was like literally like a lawsuit and this whole thing, like, and that's just like one of the ways that, apart from music, I've always been vocal. I've always been like the one who's like, well, if no one else is gonna say it, then I'll say it, which is a cool trait to have, but also one that's like chaotic. So, but I think music has been a more tame way to do it. I think my words apart from music are more impactful in like political senses than like music, but I will do it. I love to do it. I did on Kimmel. Like I'm that person who will integrate it if I need to and if I can, if the platform is right. But I've always just been a vocal person in general. One
of the things that people know you for originally is your letter to Kanye, which you were vocal about. What inspired you to write that?
A conversation in my kitchen at like 8 p.m. like after maybe 10, like around that. I was living in New York with my good friends, and I remember at that time I didn't like have a job. Like I had just moved out there, and my manager / good friend at the time, she went to school out there, and so she'd be gone all day, and then like the other person who lived with us on the second floor, he would be gone all day, so I'd be at home by myself all day, just like kind of like, I don't know, like kind of watching my analytics and also like trying to create and be like active in some way because I can't not be productive. When they got home, it was just like I'd already seen the MAGA hat and all that, and so all these emotions that I had to myself all day, we all came home. Well, they came home at the same time, and we all convened in the kitchen for about 2 hours and just like let it all out and talked about like the impact of it and why it was so bad and like why we felt so strongly about it. Because it's easy to be like, okay, yeah, it's fucked up, but why do you care? But to be in a room with other people who cared as much, and also they weren't black, they're both white, so like it's hearing the perspective of them as well, like, okay, so other people know this is not okay, and the narrative being like spewed here, regardless of if it's for some kind of artistic outlet or if it's what he truly believes, it's not okay. And after that conversation, I remember everyone just fired up and kind of went to their own separate corners. Like my roommate Corey, shout out to Corey, he went to his section of the crib, and then LJ, shout out to LJ, she went upstairs, and I just like, I'll meet you up there, because we shared a room in the attic, but I was like, I'll meet you up there, I'm gonna sit in the office down here and just write. And I remember I was like, what can I write to? Like, what will make this as impactful as I need it to be? Because I need him to hear me. And I know Kanye is, no shade to him, a narcissist. So I was like, oh, over his own beat, let's do that. And I picked the most iconic one that I could, which we all know is Jesus Walks. There's many other iconic ones, but Jesus Walks is a great one. And I just started writing, and it came so fast, and it was just really what I felt. It wasn't even one that I stewed over too much. I was just like, let's put it on the table. Let's put everything on the table. And that's why it's read as a diss these days, because like it's cutthroat and it's very straightforward. I don't hate Kanye though. It's just like in that moment, it's like, okay, you need someone to talk to you like a person, like level with you, which is what I said. Like I'm a level with you because we both dropped out of college, son. Like that's where we're at. Like it's not a dig. It's more so like, you listen, like I'm a part of the group that you'll impact. And so that's what went into that verse.
Did you have any idea that it would resonate the way it did?
I didn't know. So I had gone viral a lot at that point, and even before that, 2 days before that, I had done a verse to 1985 by J. Cole, because he dropped KOD like a week, like not even a week, a few days before this, if not the day before this. I was quick back then. But I did that verse, and it had blown up, and it was my biggest verse to date before the Kanye verse. And so I was kind of just basking in that moment still, not expecting for the reception of the Kanye verse to surpass what is, at that point, was my biggest milestone. I knew people would agree, but I didn't know it would be as like, heavy or like make such a path for me in terms of like the opportunities it presented afterwards. And I know people have their own opinions that may, pair with mine, but I didn't know that it would be that big of a deal, And I'm glad it was. I mean, that's a good feeling, but it happens.
You dropped that. You dropped the track over the Cardi B beat also that she reposted.
Yeah.
What's that feeling like when you go from like doing stuff on your own, and then now you're starting to see that it's making impacts throughout the culture?
It's good. It's a really good feeling, like being on social media and building most of my platform, all of my platform by my own hands, like to see it pay off is a good feeling. And people don't understand that like it's a job that doesn't pay, and being on top of it every day and needing to like keep yourself, I guess, quote unquote relevant in a social media standpoint. People don't get that like it's draining. And so even in terms of like at the time with the Cardi verse, that was the money verse. And before that, like during that entire time period, I was just so depressed and just sad. And like there's been a lot of things that happened up until that point that made that happen. There's one specific event, but we won't talk about it, BET, but there's one event that happened before that that literally just devastated me. And I was just like, yo, I don't know what I'm doing wrong, because it just, the way that it turned out was so opposite of how it should have, that I was really doubting myself. And I don't even really remember what that fire came from, but I remember sitting in the car and writing that verse. Like, I'd be that person because my parents didn't like me smoking in the house. I'd sit in my car and like play music, and I had that beat on a loop, and I'd like drive to the gas station, like grab a blunt, like or a blunt wrapper, like a Black and Mild, and like sit in my car and play that over and over again, and like just write and spit. And I went to my best friend's apartment, and like I would like write it there, and then I would be like, you want to hear what I have? And they're like, yeah, let's do it. And when I did it, I didn't expect anything of it. Like, it was a good verse and I was proud of it, but I did not expect it, because that verse gave me 300K like overnight when Cardi reposted it, and I didn't expect anything of that. I was just in a place where I was like, I can't quit. Like, I'm sad right now, but I can't quit, so let me just make something that makes me feel good. And so the reception of it, and that happens, that goes for everything I've done that's gone viral. The reception of it is always something that, apart from an ego thing, it's just a very validating feeling of like, what I'm working towards matters and people care. And so that was a really good feeling.
When you hit those dark times, what do you tap into to get you through that?
I think in the past it was like a chip on my shoulder. I'd have to ask myself, do you think you're dope? Like, do you think that like you deserve this? And with the answer to that, it's never just like, yeah, I deserve this. It's like fuck yeah. Like, wait a minute, hold on, who do you think I, like, and so with that, you use that energy and you try to create something that proves it, you know, like that shows where you've been, and shows like all of those scars in a way that like forms them into a beautiful picture. And so for me, like when I get to my darkest places, like I kind of conjure up the energy that could technically be negative. And like, I'm like, okay, if it's gonna be negative and I'm gonna be sad, that's fine. But like for this moment, all that passion, let's put it into something constructive. And then I do. And then like when the outcome is what it is, it's a great feeling.
What's your creative process like when you start to write? Do you let the beat drive you? Do you think lyrics first? My creative process has varied a lot in the past couple of years. Typically what works for me is letting the beat drive me. I think beats tell stories. And even when producers name their beats before they have actual song titles, it's because the beat tells a certain story. And so for me, when I would pick out certain certain beats and like listen back to them, I'll go through the longest part of my process, especially when I was writing on Instagram, was finding the right beat. Because once I find the right beat, everything just like flows very easily, even down to the Kanye verse with the Jesus Walks beats. Like it's very confrontational. It's a very like in your face beat. Like, and if had I picked any other one, like let's say I picked like Good Life or like something, like I would have been, the vibe would have been completely different, and it wouldn't have been able to support the story that I was trying to tell, support the words I was saying. It's typically letting the beat move me, and then like, you know, building a song on top of that. When you hear the beat, do you already have a concept in mind that you're trying to get the beat to fit into that concept, or does the beat give you the... I think I always enter with the concept. I always have something to say. Like, I don't want to just sit and write because I can write. You know what I mean? Like, me, I'm very transparent. I'm very like, I want you to know how I feel, because if I waste this opportunity saying a whole bunch of bullshit, then like, what is the point? And so I always have something I want to say, and if that's what helps me pick a beat that tells the right story, because I enter it with the mindset of like, this is what I need to be felt. This is like how I want them to know I'm coming. And so like, that's typically how I enter any situation in creating anything, even with like paintings. I paint, like any kind of creative aspect avenue that I enter, I'm like, what is the motif here? What is the theme? What do I want to be? What do I want people to walk away with? And that's already in my head. Like, I think too much, so that's already in there. It sounds far more complicated and like professional, but trust me, it's just like, oh, when you're a chronic overthinker, that's already on your head. Like, it's fine.